Imagine a clock ticking. But it's not counting down seconds or minutes. It's counting down the moments until human civilization just stops.
And this isn't science fiction. We're talking about 13 very real days in October of 1962.
Without a doubt, the closest we have ever come to total annihilation.
I mean, we tend to think of history in these big sweeping arcs, but the fate of the planet really came down to a few hours. And in one case, a single decision by one man.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into the Cuban Missile Crisis, but here's our mission. We want to get past that high school textbook version. You know the one.
Oh yeah, Kennedy versus Khrushchev. The Soviets blink, the good guys win. It's a nice, clean story.
But the reality when you dig into the sources is so much messier, and honestly, it's a lot scarier.
It is. We're looking at the actual meeting notes from XCOM, we're looking at military logs, even accounts from inside Soviet submarines, and it wasn't a chess match.
Not at all.
It was more like two blindfolded men stumbling around a room full of dynamite.
While their advisors are yelling at them to light a match.
Exactly. So to understand how we got there, you have to look at the Cold War context.
Right. After World War II, the world didn't really get peace. It got split in two.
A global divorce. You had the U.S. and the capitalist West on one side, and the Soviet Union and the communist East on the other.
Yeah.
And they couldn't fight directly without destroying everything.
So they competed in every other way imaginable. Proxy wars, the space race, and, of course, the arms race.
And that's what leads to this concept of MD.
Mutually assured destruction. The acronym has always felt a little too perfect.
It is, isn't it? And the logic is, well, it's terrifyingly simple. If I can destroy you and you can destroy me, neither of us is going to be the first to strike.
It's deterrence, peace through the threat of apocalypse.
But here's the flaw, and the sources really drive this home. The whole system depends on rational actors and perfect communication.
Which, humans are famous for when they're terrified and sleep-deprived.
Precisely. The system assumes everyone acts like a computer. And that flaw gets exposed in 1959, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Fidel Castro takes over, aligns with the Soviets, and suddenly the U.S. has a communist state in its backyard.
And the U.S. response wasn't exactly subtle. We have to talk about the Bay of Pigs.
You have to. Failed invasion in 1961 is the catalyst for everything. It was a total disaster for the Kennedy administration.
So from Castro's point of view, he's thinking, they tried once, they're definitely coming back.
He was completely paranoid, and for good reason. And this gave the Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, a huge opportunity.
He could protect his new ally, but it was also about something bigger, right?
It was about balance. The U.S. had Jupiter missiles in Turkey and Italy, right on the Soviet border. They could hit Moscow in minutes. Khrushchev wanted the U.S. to know what that felt like.
He said he wanted to throw a hedgehog down Uncle Sam's pants.
That was his phrase. So in the summer of '62, the Soviets launched this massive covert operation.
Operation Anadir.
Yes. They're sneaking nuclear missiles, launchers, and tens of thousands of troops into Cuba right under the nose of U.S. surveillance.
How do they even think they could pull that off?
Pure deception. Soviet soldiers in civilian clothes. Missile parts labeled as agricultural machinery. They were trying to get everything set up before Washington even knew what was happening.
A done deal. The missiles are here, now what are you going to do?
Exactly. But they didn't count on the U-2.
October 14th, 1962, a spy plane flies over Cuba and snaps a few photos.
And when the CIA analysts developed that film, their blood must have run cold. There they were, medium-range ballistic missile sites.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, these are not defensive weapons.
Not at all. These are offensive missiles that could hit Washington, D.C. or New York in about 5 minutes. It completely changes the game.
So Kennedy gets the news. The abstract Cold War just became very, very real.
He immediately assembles his top advisors, this group called XCOM. And they are looking at a list of options that are all, frankly, terrible.
So what's on the table?
Well, option one, do nothing.
Political suicide. He can't. He'd look weak. He'd probably get impeached.
Right. So option two, airstrikes, bomb the sites. Or option three, a full-scale invasion of Cuba.
And the military brass, people like General Curtis LeMay, they were pushing hard for that.
They were the hawks. They thought war was coming anyway, so better to strike first. But Kennedy, he kept asking this really simple question.
If we bomb them, will they bomb us back?
And the answer was probably. An attack on Soviet soldiers would demand a response from Khrushchev. Maybe he takes West Berlin. Maybe he launches his own missiles. And then it's World War III.
So Kennedy looks for a middle path.
He finds it in option 4, a blockade. But he's very, very careful about the words he uses. He refuses to call it a block.
The blockade, right, because that's an act of war under international law.
It is. So instead, he calls it a quarantine.
It sounds almost medical, defensive.
Exactly. It was a brilliant legal maneuver to stop more weapons from getting in without immediately starting a shooting war.
So on October 22nd, Kennedy goes on television, tells the world what's happening, and announces the quarantine.
And that's when the world just holds its breath. You have to imagine the public panic. People are building bomb shelters in their backyards. Supermarkets are being stripped bare.
And the military goes to DEFCON 2.
Which is the highest level we have ever been at in U.S. history. It means the next step is nuclear war. Nuclear-armed bombers were in the air, 247, just waiting for the order.
This is where we get into the fog of war. This idea that the leaders, Kennedy and Khrushchev, weren't fully in control of the situation.
And that's the scariest part of this whole thing. For instance, the U.S. didn't know that the Soviet commanders on the ground in Cuba already had the authority to use tactical nukes if they were invaded.
Wait, hold on. So if Kennedy had listened to his generals and launched an invasion...
The local Soviet commander could have launched a nuclear weapon without even calling Moscow. The U.S. invasion force would have been vaporized.
Which would have triggered an all-out nuclear war.
Instantly. We were that close. But the story that really shows how thin the line was is the submarine incident.
This is the moment, October 27th, Black Saturday.
You have this Soviet submarine, the B-59, deep in the Caribbean, and conditions inside are a living nightmare.
Not a pleasant trip.
No. They've been submerged for weeks. The air conditioning is broken. It's over 100 degrees inside. The crew is fainting from the heat, and they're totally cut off from Moscow. They have no idea if the war has already started.
They're completely in the dark.
Totally. And then, suddenly, U.S. warships find them. And to force the sub to surface, they start dropping these small depth charges.
Now, the U.S. Navy says these were just practice rounds. They were meant to signal, not to destroy.
But the guys inside the sub don't know that. All they know is that explosions are rocking their boat. For all they know, World War III has begun and they're under attack.
So the captain, Valentin Savitsky, he snaps.
He completely loses it. He screams, "We're going to blast them now. We will die, but we will sink them all." And he orders them to prepare this special weapon.
Which is a nuclear-tipped torpedo.
A 10-kiloton nuke. If he fires that, he takes out an entire U.S. aircraft carrier group. The U.S. retaliates against Moscow. And that's the end of everything.
So why didn't it happen?
Because Soviet protocol required 3 senior officers to agree to the launch. The captain said yes. The political officer said yes. But the third man, a man named Vasili Arkhipov, he said no.
He just refused.
He refused. He was the senior officer of the flotilla, and he happened to be on that specific submarine. And in that sweltering, hellish chaos, he kept his cool. He argued that they didn't have confirmation that a war had started. He calmed the captain down and convinced him to surface.
One man.
One man. If Arkhipov had been on a different boat, or if he'd just given in to the pressure, we would not be having this conversation.
That is absolutely chilling.
It's the ultimate example of how history survived, not because of some grand strategy, but because of individual restraint.
So while Arkhipov is saving the world underwater, Kennedy and Khrushchev are trying to find a way out.
Right. And things are still escalating. That same day, a U-2 plane is shot down over Cuba, and the pilot is killed. The generals are demanding retaliation. But Kennedy hesitates. He pulls back.
And this is when the weird letters start arriving.
The tale of 2 letters. First, on October 26th, a long, emotional, rambling message comes from Khrushchev. It's very personal, and the core of it is, "We'll remove the missiles if you promise not to invade Cuba."
Okay, that seems like a deal you can work with.
It was a lifeline. But before they can even formally respond, the next day, a summit letter arrives. And this one is much tougher, much more formal. It adds a new demand. You also have to remove your missiles from Turkey.
Which puts Kennedy in a terrible position.
A terrible bind. He can't publicly trade away NATO-allied missiles. He'd look like he was betraying his allies just to save his own skin.
So what does he do? This move is incredible.
It's known as the Trollope Ploy. He decides to just ignore the second letter.
Just pretend it never happened.
Essentially, he crafts a public response that only addresses the terms from the first, softer letter. He says yes to the no invasion pledge in exchange for removing the missiles. He doesn't even mention Turkey.
But that can't be the whole story. The Soviets would know he was ignoring their main demand.
It wasn't. because this is where the secret deal comes in. While publicly ignoring the second letter, Kennedy sends his brother, Robert, to have a secret meeting with the Soviet ambassador.
And this is where the real trade takes place.
Exactly. RFK tells the ambassador, look, we can't do this publicly, but I'm telling you man to man, if you get your missiles out of Cuba, our missiles in Turkey will be gone in a few months.
A secret quid pro quo.
A handshake deal.
Yeah.
We'll do it, but you can never, ever say this was a trade. The world has to believe you blinked.
And Khrushchev took the deal.
He took it. He was just as scared as Kennedy. He was losing control of his own military. So on October 28th, the world learned that the Soviets were dismantling the missiles. The crisis was over.
So if we're looking at the outcome, who actually won?
That's the fascinating thing, isn't it? Publicly, the U.S. looked like the winner, and Kennedy's reputation soared. The Soviets looked weak, which hurt Khrushchev politically.
But behind the scenes,
The Soviets got what they wanted. They got the U.S. missiles out of Turkey, and more importantly, they got a promise that the U.S. would never invade Cuba. Castro stayed in power for another 50 years.
So the real winner was just humanity. For getting another day.
That's it, exactly. Both sides stared into the abyss and were so terrified by what they saw that it actually led to some positive changes.
Like the hotline.
The famous red phone, yeah.
Yep.
A direct line between Washington and Moscow so they could actually talk to each other in a crisis. And it kicked off the first real arms control talks.
But the big lesson here from our sources isn't really about brilliant leadership, is it?
No, the takeaway is much darker. The sources argue that survival didn't come from wisdom or perfect systems. It came down to hesitation, restraint, and just pure dumb luck.
That hesitation we mentioned, Kennedy not bombing immediately, Arkhipov not launching the torpedo.
In this case, hesitation saved the world. The system itself, the logic of MAD, was pushing everyone toward war. We survived because individuals at key moments refused to follow the script.
It really makes you realize history isn't inevitable. It's just a series of coin flips.
And we got heads about 5 times in a row.
So why does this matter to someone listening today?
Because the weapons are still here. And this crisis proves that deterrence works right up until the second it doesn't. It proves that we can't rely on systems that require perfect human rationality because people are not perfect. We misread things. We get scared. We get angry.
It's a hell of a reality check.
It is.
We're going to wrap it up there, but I want to leave you with one final thought from the source material that it stuck with me.
Go for it.
The world didn't survive because the system worked. It survived because individuals, like Vasili Arkhipov in that sweltering submarine, refused to follow their orders. If that one man had made a different choice, if he had just nodded his head instead of shaking it, you wouldn't be here to listen to this.
We are all, quite literally, living on the credit of his no.
Exactly. Thanks for diving in with us.
Stay curious.
And stay safe. We'll see you on the next deep dive.